Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. I have to confess, I have lied to you. I'm so sorry. In the title of this video, I told you guys that I was going to talk about my 25 most anticipated book releases for 2025, and I lied. I lied because there are 27 books on my list. I really tried to make it 25 books because I just feel like 25 books for 2025 just sounds so much more snappy, but I'm just too excited for all of the book releases, so I couldn't narrow it down to 25. We are going to talk about 27 today. Starting in January, we are starting right off the bat with two really exciting releases on January 7th. The first one is A Sea of Unspoken Things. This is by Adrienne Young, who also wrote The Unmaking of June Pharaoh that I absolutely love, and then also Spells for Forgetting, which I also really loved. So A Sea of Unspoken Things is another one of her magical realism mysteries. It sounds definitely right up her alley with her other books. So this one is about a twin sister and a brother who are literally so connected. There's something magical going on. They can just like feel what's happening to each other. Their bond is so strong. One day the brother is unfortunately killed in an accident, and the sister like already knows what happened before anyone has realized and has called her and told her. So she goes to this rural town to sort out his affairs when she runs into the one man who might possibly know what exactly happened to her brother, and also this man happens to be like an ex-lover of hers, of course. And so while she's there, all these like secrets, all these lies and different truths start coming up. The whole mystery of everything and what happened starts unraveling before her, and yeah, we get into it. This book sounds actually really similar to Spells for Forgetting in terms of like the plot points, the major plot points, what's going on. So I'm actually really curious to see how this one will be different from Spells for Forgetting. But yeah, I just think Adrienne Young's writing is so moody. It's so intense and atmospheric, and I'm really excited for this one. The other release that's coming out January 7th is Four Ruined Realms by Corland. This is the second book in the Broken Blades series. The first one was 5 Broken Blades, and so this is a romantasy. The first book follows 5 different liars who are hired to pull off this really difficult task together. They're trying to work together the best they can, but they're trained not to trust anyone. Like we have an assassin, we have a strong arm, we have like a noble guy who just lies to everyone. Everyone has these like really sus histories, and everyone has a reason to mistrust one another, but the only way they can pull off this task that they've been assigned to do is to trust each other. So we get this really interesting dynamic and story of these people trying to trust each other but always holding a little something in their back pockets, and then throughout the journey we realize that everyone's actually betraying each other, and it becomes like so messy. I really loved 5 Broken Blades. It was very like Six of Crows-esque in the way that we had all these different POVs and we didn't know like the big picture of everything and what was actually going on. Just like such a fun ride. I'm really excited for this one. And then later in January, I obviously have to talk about the January 21st release, Onyx Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I don't think I need to explain this book much more. It's the 3rd book in the Empyrean series, which is the 4th Wing series. I'm so excited for this release. I'm actually going to go to the midnight release in Toronto so I can grab this book right away, and I've taken off 2 days of work to read it. I'm gonna make a reading vlog when it comes out. It's definitely one of my most anticipated releases for 2025, and I'm so excited. I want this one to be like painful. I want this one to be angsty, and I want there to be a lot of conflict. I don't want Violet and Xaden to be like bickering throughout this entire book. I don't want that anymore. We had enough of that in Iron Flame, okay? So I want there to be like real issues, not just a couple bickering. But yeah, we'll talk more about it in my reading vlog when it comes out. I'm so excited. And then on January 28th, the week after, we have I Am Not Jessica Chen by Anne Liang. Anne Liang has like quickly just jumped into one of my top favorite authors. After reading A Song to Drown Rivers this year by her, I just fell in love with her writing. I loved that book so much. It was one of my favorite books of 2024. I just really love her writing. I feel like it's really easy to read, but it also gets deep into the emotions, and it's really good for storytelling, her writing style. This one I'm really excited about because it's a YA magical realism story. Our main character, Jenna Chen, is not doing so well. She's a student, but she has been rejected from every single Ivy League school that she has applied to, so she's, you know, her future prospects look very dim at the moment. So she makes this wish to be more successful like her cousin, Jessica Chen. But careful what you wish for, because her wish literally became true, and she wakes up one day and she is Jessica Chen. And along with this, you know, she starts getting into Jessica Chen's life, diving into her like journals and like going to her school and finding all these secrets that no one ever knew she had. So that's a big issue. And then another issue is she starts realizing her parents are starting to forget who Jenna Chen is, her actual self. And so she has to start figuring out if she wants to live the rest of her life as Jessica Chen, her cousin, or if it's worth it to try and go back to her true self. The premise of this book just sounds so fun, so interesting, and yeah, I love Liang, so really excited about this one. Okay, we're diving into February. We're starting off romance month with Deep End by Hazelwood. This releases on February 4th. This one I'm curious about, but also a little bit mixed on. It's one of my anticipated releases of the year because I'm definitely like excited to read it and see what it is. I'm very curious about it, but I honestly don't know if this book is going to be one for me because this is a sports romance, first of all, and I have never really read a sports romance. I just don't see it being a genre that I'm into because like in real life, I'm not really a sports girly. So like, why would I be a sports girly in books? I don't know. And then also this cover looks like so spicy. The cover of the book looks so suggestive that I'm a little bit scared because after reading Not in Love by Hazelwood this year, I really highly disliked that book and I did not like the spice in that book at all. So the fact that the cover of this book is so spicy is kind of scaring me. But anyways, let's talk about what it's about because I'm still curious. I'm still like anticipating its release, if that makes sense. But this one is about a competitive swimmer, Scarlett, who is recovering from an injury. So she's kind of like sitting at the sidelines right now and she's put all of her focus into school. So she's trying to get into med school. Scarlett is like forced for some reason to make a deal working with the swim captain, Lucas, who is currently just like winning all of the gold medals everywhere. It also looks like there might be some sort of a fake dating scenario in here. But that's kind of all I know about the plot. I'm definitely curious to read it. I am a little bit scared, but the Hazelwood swimming spicy sports romance of 2025. Sadly, there are no books coming out on my birthday, February 12th, but on February 18th, Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli is coming out. I'm so excited about this one. This is the sequel to Heartless Hunter, the Crimson Moth series, and I think this is it for this book. I'm pretty sure this is a duology. This is a YA romantasy. We have a witch and a witch hunter. We have like a blood-based magic system, and the first book was just so super addictive. It was fast-paced. It was just like one of those books that you devour. And while the first book had quite a few plot holes, it was just pure entertainment for me. It was so fun. The ending left us in this like really messy situation that made me really excited for the sequel. It was just so chaotic at the end of Heartless Hunter. I need to know how things are going to tie together and resolve, so I'm so excited for this one. Okay, moving into March. On March 18th, we have such an exciting release. So we have by Suzanne Collins, Sunrise on the Reaping. I actually love how Hunger Games is making its comeback. In the past couple of years, we had The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, we had the book release and the movie release, and now we're getting another book and movie release with Sunrise on the Reaping. I feel like I don't have to explain the Hunger Games as a whole, but this book is Haymitch's Games. It's another prequel to the Hunger Games, and I'm so excited to read about Haymitch's Games and read about him as a younger character and how he developed to be the adult that he was in the Hunger Games. I think this book is going to be so painful. Just knowing what I know about the Hunger Games lore, I feel like there's going to be so many emotions with this one. I honestly can't even decide if I'm more excited about the book or the movie because I'm also just so curious to see like who's gonna play young Haymitch, who's gonna play like young Snow, who's like kind of a Snow in between the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and then the Hunger Games. I'm so curious about this one. It's gonna be painful, but it's gonna be good. I hope. I think that's everything that was on my list for March, but in April, I feel like April is always the month of book releases. There's always so many books releasing in April for some reason. I wonder if it's like kind of that transition between like winter and summer reads. So a lot of authors just like to release in April. So like the books are all out for when like the nice summer reading weather comes. I don't know. But starting on April 1st, we have another multi-release day. So the first one is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for this one because I feel like the past few Abby Jimenez books have all just been so strong. They've been so good, and I feel like this one will also be very good. So this is a romance, of course. Our male main character is Xavier Rush, which, like, what name? What a name. I feel like it's a very fanficky name, but he is this stud of a veterinarian. So he's an animal lover and we love him already, but apparently the second he opens his mouth and says something, we might get some other impressions of him, according to our female main character, Samantha, who just loves proving people like him wrong. She ends up going on a date with this guy and it goes surprisingly very well. But that being said, Samantha all of a sudden finds herself in this really bad time in her life. Her family's having a crisis, so she's like, you know what, as much as I got along with this guy, I just can't be in a relationship right now. So she just tells Xavier, hey, you need to forget me. But of course, it's a romance book, so I don't think they forget each other. And that is Say You'll Remember Me. I just think Abby Jimenez writes romance so good. Like the banter she writes, the healthy relationships she writes, and then also the way she ties other stories into it, like with family, with different trauma coming from other sources. She's really, really good at that. So excited for this one. And the cover looks so cute. Also on April 1st, I actually already read this book, so it was anticipated for me, but it's not really technically anticipated for me anymore because I did receive the ARC for it and I read it this year, but it should be anticipated for you. And this book is Gifted and Talented by Olivie Blake. This is an urban fantasy sci-fi story, and we follow 3 siblings whose father just died. This family is very rich. Their father owns Renfair Technologies, which is this gigantic, massive company. And then so we have the 3 kids who are now like fighting over who will inherit his company, his riches, everything, all of his assets, etc. All of his children are gifted. They have these like telekinetic powers. And throughout the book, they honestly just like bicker. All of them are like kind of successful in their own ways, but also have their demons hidden inside them as well. So those all start coming out, and it's this really interesting read. I did enjoy it, but I think you have to be in the mood to enjoy a book like this. It's written in this very pretentious writing style, which really sucks reading, but it fits the story because you're reading these characters that are highly unlikable, very pretentious themselves. So the pretentious writing and the pretentious characters just kind of like go hand in hand and fit really well together. This book is just a mess. I always mention to you guys that I have a very like mixed opinion on Olivie Blake's books. All of her books are very mixed bag for me, whether I like them or not. And I found this one to be one of her stronger books, so there's that. Also on April 1st, this one's also one that's cheating on the list because I read it this year. I've been really lucky with ARCs this year, but Emilia Hart is releasing The Sirens. This one is very much like Wayward, which was her very popular book in 2023, where we follow these different timelines of female characters that are like kind of connected, and there's, you know, some sort of mythical creature involved. So in Wayward, it was very witchy. In Sirens, it's very siren-y or mermaidy. And so we have 2 different timelines of 2 different sisters. In our modern day timeline, we have a sister who is going to school. She starts having these like really weird dreams, and then all of a sudden she wakes up and finds herself like strangling one of her like classmates, and she's like, oh my god, she's like mortified. She's like, what do I do now? I'm so embarrassed. I'm so mortified. How do I face these people? And so she runs away. She flees to find her sister, who has moved to this like remote cliffside town. She's like, if there's anyone who can help, it's my weirdo sister. But when she gets there, her sister's missing, and she has to figure out where she went and what happened to her. And then we have our past timeline, which is set in the 1800s. We have 2 sisters who are torn from their loving home in Ireland and forced onto this ship and exiled to Australia. And so yeah, they're just like on this ship full of convicted criminals. And those are our 2 timelines, and they are somewhat connected to each other. And I really like this one. I think Emilia Hart is just really good at writing these stories of women and highlighting the strength and resilience of her female characters. So yeah, that's Wayward. I was really excited about it for 2025, but I did manage to read it in 2024. And then on April 8th, we have the release of Enchantra by Kaylie Smith. This is the sequel to Phantasma, and I'm so excited for this one because Phantasma was just so much fun. This series is like a dark romantasy. It's very Caraval coded. To me, it was sort of a mixture of Caraval and One Dark Window. show plus like dark spicy romance, because we have this like traveling game that's very quirky and mysterious, very similar to Caraval. We also follow two sisters, also similar to Caraval. It was one dark window for me because it was very gothic, and our main character also had this sort of like a voice inside of her head, and that just gave me very One Dark Window vibes. And then it was just very spicy and demony and dark and romantic. And while Phantasma was too spicy for my personal preference, I just think the overall story was really fun, and this series is really following the Caraval blueprint, because the second book, Enchantra, follows the sister character. And I think in Enchantra we're diving into a completely different game, so it's not going to be like a repeat of Phantasma, but it's going to be the sister going into a whole other game entirely. So I'm really curious to see like what this Enchantra game will be. I'm just really excited for it. April 22nd, oh my gosh, April is so stacked. I'm just going to be reading every single minute of my life in April, but we have the Emily Henry release on April 22nd, A Great Big Beautiful Life. This is a romance, but I think it's gonna be more like contemporary fiction. This one is about two authors who get the chance to tell this like amazing larger than life story of a very interesting woman with a lot of plot twists of her own. I think we have forced proximity because the two of them are forced to like come live with this woman and like research about her, but she's only telling each of them only small bits of her story, so she's kind of forcing them to work together to get the full story and like to write an actual good book that's not like missing all of these pieces. And so they have to work together and I don't know, figure out their differences, because I don't think they like each other very much. So you have this forced proximity situation, and it's Emily Henry. Like, I've loved her books over the past few years. So I feel like there's just no way that this book is going to disappoint me. I think it's going to be so good, and I'm so excited for it. On April 22nd, this book release is actually going to be really interesting for me. This is Voice of the Ocean by Kelsey and Impicciche. This is a debut novel, and I literally have no idea how I will like this book, but I'm really excited for it because Kelsey and Impicciche is a like Sims content creator. She's like a game streamer, and she posts on YouTube, and I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I love The Sims. I absolutely love The Sims, and I love watching Kelsey play The Sims on YouTube. I love her channel, and she has now written a book, so I'm really excited to read her book and see like what her writing is like. This is a YA romantasy. It follows a siren who defies her people for a prince, and I honestly don't know that much about the plot other than that, but I think just from the way I've seen Kelsey like craft stories, from the way she plays The Sims, it's really interesting. Like when I play The Sims, I feel like I'm not thinking of like details of the stories and stuff. I'm just building stuff. I'm like creating my characters and like making them interact with each other and do things. But the way she plays The Sims and presents them on her channel, like she really crafts together these really interesting stories of betrayal and angst, and she always has like romance in her Sims stories. I've always been really enthralled at the way she tells stories through Sims, so I'm really curious to see how she will tell a story through text. Yeah, this one's a bit of a wild card, but I'm really excited for it, and I think it's just amazing when people can just write books. Like, I'm so impressed already. Okay, we're finally out of April. Whew, that was a lot of book releases for April, but in May, we have another multi-release date for May 6th. The first book coming out on this day is One Golden Summer by Carley Fortune. I didn't love the latest release, the 2024 release from her, but I'm really excited for this one because I have liked her writing and her books in the past, and this one is actually about a character that was in, what was it called? I always forget what her books are called. Every Summer After. That was the first book I read from Carley Fortune. This book is about the brother who was in that book, and I just find that so interesting that she is like going back and revisiting this character after all of these years. Do you hear those sirens? I think there's like a Santa Claus parade happening outside right now, and for some reason the police are involved. I hope everything's okay. They're probably just part of like the float. There's always like a police float. There's always like a police float in this parade, so I think it's just that. Or maybe they're just clearing the road. I think her books just like exude summer. She's really good at setting that summer vibe. And I just think the plot of her latest release was not very strong, so I hope the plot just plots more in this one, because I feel like I enjoy every other aspect of her writing. The setting, the tension that she is able to set between like two main characters in romance, I feel like is so strong. I need more plot from her, so I hope this one delivers. Oh my gosh. And then the second release on May 6th. I don't know which one I'm gonna want to read first because one of them is very much of a lighter read and then the other one I'm just like way more excited about, and that is The Strength of the Few by James Islington. This is the second book to The Will of the Many, the Hierarchy series. Oh my gosh. I loved The Will of the Many so much, and the ending of that book just sent me into a spiral that I'm still thinking of to this day. Like, the amount of theories in my head that I just need to confirm in the next book is wild. So The Will of the Many is a like high fantasy sort of sci-fi dystopian. We have this really interesting world that's very pyramid scheme based, where the people at the bottom feed their power into the people at the top. So we have these super strong people at the top, and then all of the people at the bottom of the pyramid are just like constantly feeding their will or their strength to the people above them. So we have this like really set hierarchy, and we follow Vis, our main character, who is an orphan, and he gets adopted, and then he ends up in this like very elite academy where he is sent to progress in the rankings and also spy on certain people. It's just like this really amazing story in my opinion that has this huge twist at the end, and it's just crazy. I can't say more than that. But The Will of the Many was actually my November book club pick, and the discussion that we had in that book club meeting was intense. Like, we were going through it all. So yeah, I'm really excited for the sequel. I have no idea what direction this book is going to go in. I'm so curious to see like how James Islington is going to pull this off, because it sounds like the plot is going to get so much more complex. I'm just so curious, and I'm so excited. So excited for this one. Then on May 20th, we have the Rachel Gillig release, The Night and the Moth. This is the same author of the One Dark Window duology, which I absolutely love. It's another gothic fantasy, but I think this one's going to be adult. I think One Dark Window was YA. We follow Sybil, who I think like sort of sees ghosts. Hold on, oh no, she sees omens. Ooh, I like the vibe already. So Sybil can actually predict bad things that are going to happen before they even occur, because she can see these omens. One day, a mysterious knight arrives. He's rude, he's arrogant. Sybil just like hates him immediately. So obviously she wants nothing to do with him. But then Sybil starts realizing that people around her are starting to disappear. So she has no other chance but to work with him and to figure out what's going on. I'm so excited for this one. I think Rachel Gillig just like is so good at setting the scene. She's really good at setting that gothic vibe, that gothic mood. I think this is gonna be another duology. The last May release on my list is The Love Haters by Catherine Center. Catherine Center is a romance author that I have grown to love this past year because she writes very little spice. She writes really good romance, but minimal smut, and I really appreciate that from her in this world where a lot of romance books are spicy. There's nothing wrong with spice, it's just not something that I personally prefer. Obviously, I have loved spicy books in the past, but whenever I do love spicy books, it's usually not for the spice, it's for the rest of the book. But yeah, that's the reason I love Catherine Center, is that she's able to write romance in this modern day with no spice. In this one, we follow Katie, who is a video producer. She's hired to profile this very good looking, I think he's like a Coast Guard. So there's a lot of swimming involved because she has to follow him as he's like doing these Coast Guard swimming in the ocean things. But the thing is, Katie doesn't know how to swim. So things get messy. There's some sort of like a rescue dog involved, I think. And this one just sounds like a really fun summer romance, and I'm really excited. On June 3rd, we're going into June, we actually have another Anne Liang release, which is so impressive that Anne Liang can release multiple books in a year. I think what she's done, she's talked about this before because everyone asks her how she can release books so fast. She's actually been writing and stockpiling, like backlogging a bunch of books over like the past 5 years, and they're only now releasing one after the other. So it's not like she's writing books super quick and they're like low quality and they're not edited well. She's written these books like years and years ago, and they're only now getting picked up and released. So that's the backstory. That's the lore of Anne Liang. But this is another YA romance. We follow Leah, who goes to, I think, her cousin's wedding, and then at her cousin's wedding, she's just like she's holding a grudge for some reason. I don't know the reason. She wishes a very bad life upon her cousin. She's like, oh, I wish her marriage doesn't work out. I wish she falls ill. I hope her family falls apart. And so her parents see this happening, and her parents are like, hey, we need to stage an intervention. We need to get you back on track with life. Like, what is wrong with you? And so they send her back to China because, you know, that's just the solution to many Asian parents. They also realize she's forgotten her Mandarin, she's lost touch with her culture, her heritage, her roots, her family, and so they think, yeah, just sending her back to China will be the solution for her. As she's in China, she bumps into an old flame, maybe? An old classmate that she's never liked. They hang out in China together, and this is supposed to be a story of homecoming, of finding yourself again, of like connecting to your roots and your heritage, and I just think this one sounds really nice. I think it'll be a wholesome story. I've already mentioned how much I love Anne Liang. I also just love how she really truly connects to like her Asian roots, her Chinese roots, and really ties all of that into literally every single book I've read from her. Yeah, I love her. I love Anne Liang so much. Okay, another June 3rd release is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I feel like we haven't gotten a Taylor Jenkins Reid in a while. She didn't have a release in 2024, I don't think, unless it was like a novella, but this one is a historical fiction, and we are going to space. Our main character, Joan, is a professor who has settled into her life. She thinks this is all she will achieve in her life. She loves space, but she's just teaching about space at this point until NASA one day announces that they want to hire like a team of females, like the first ever females to be a part of their like space program. So then Joan all of a sudden has this like fire ignite within her, and all these ambitions start sparking inside of her again. So she goes on this space career ambitious journey, and I'm really excited about this one. I think Taylor Jenkins Reid has been really good at branching out and writing really interesting stories with different themes. Like she's done tennis, now she's doing space. I'm super excited about this one. I actually didn't even hear about this one until a couple days ago, and so this one's really fresh in my mind and I had to add it to this list. On June 10th, we have another book I've already read, but this one was one of my most anticipated 25 releases. Like out of this list, I was so excited for this one. This was like my top 5 from this list. Still can't believe I was able to read this arc this year. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. You guys know she's one of my absolute favorite authors. Love her books so much. She's so good at setting these like dark scenes. I love the villains that she writes, and I love that she's really embracing that with her past few releases, is that she's just focusing on villain stories, very morally gray, even morally black characters that you just follow, and ooh, she just writes the juiciest villains. I love it. But this one is a sapphic vampire story. So we follow 3 timelines that are connected. One is in Spain in like the 1500s, one in London in the 1800s, and then one in Boston, like more current day. And we follow these 3 female characters. We have vampires, we have sapphic romance. It's just so good. Just trust me on this one. I read this one this year, and it's definitely like, it feels like V.E. Schwab is bearing her soul in this book, and she has even said like she has never put so much of herself into a book before this one, and you can really tell, like you can tell she put all of her love and soul and dedication into this book. It seems to me like Addie LaRue meets Vicious, where we have this like big story that spans over all of these years that we saw in Addie LaRue, and then we have these like vicious, evil, morally gray villain characters, and it was so good. I loved it. Read it in 2025 because it's On June 17th, we have the Ashley Poston release of the year. This one is Sounds Like Love. It's going to be another one of her magical realism romances, very similar to 7 Year Slip, The Dead Romantics, A Novel Love Story, etc. But this one follows a songwriter who, I think she like dreams about a song in her head, but there's like a male voice attached and there's like parts of it missing. And one day she meets the guy of the voice and she's like, oh, you're the guy with the voice that I've been dreaming about. And then he's like, oh, you're the girl that I've been dreaming about. Like, I've been dreaming about your voice in my head with a song. And then they have to like work together to figure out their pieces of the song. But he's like also at the same time very different than what she imagined in her dreams. I think that's all I want to know about this book. I just really love diving into Ashley Poston's magical realism romances. They're always so cozy and they always like tug on your heartstrings. I think this one's gonna be really cute. And I love that it has a musical theme. I think that's gonna be really good. I think it's gonna tie into her magical realism genre really, really well. In July, we have a couple of books coming out that are actually all like Dramione fanfics that have turned into traditional publishes. So on July 1st, we have The Irresistible Urge to Fall in Love with Your Enemy. This is by Bridget Knightley, and this is a reincarnation of Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Falling in Love, which is a very popular Dramione fanfiction that I have not read, but I've heard many, many, many things about. I know a lot of people love this fanfic, and it's being traditionally published into this own book. This one's described as like like a love hypothesis meets Emily Wilde, which is very, very interesting. So it sounds like a cozy, maybe Regency period type of a story, but based on Draco Malfoy and Hermione Granger. So interesting, but I'm really curious. The next one comes out 2 days later, July 3rd. This one is by Julie Soto, who, it's so funny that she's a fanfic author because I didn't know that about her before reading some of her other romance books. This is a rewrite, traditionally published version of the fanfic called The Auction, which I also have not read, but it is another Hermione fanfic. I think this one maybe takes more of like a more classic romantasy twist on the story. And the third Hermione fanfic that is going to be released, this one doesn't have a specific release date. Right now on Goodreads it just says January 2025, so I'm assuming that means sometime in 2025. I don't know when, but this one is Alchemized by Senlin Yu. And this fanfic I actually read. This one's a rewrite of Manacled, the one Harry Potter fanfiction that I've read, and this one's like a Handmaid's Tale with Harry Potter. I'm really interested to see how all of these ones turn out because I feel like with the fanfics, there's no need for world building. There's no need for like character establishment, like initial character development, because that's already been done in the canon series. And so I'm so curious to see how these fanfictions will turn out to be real books and how they'll incorporate that world building, how they will make it not Harry Potter. It's just funny that this is the year of the Hermione fanfics and 3 of them are being traditionally published. That's so funny. On July 22nd, we have a Holly Jackson release. I'm so torn about Holly Jackson always because I love the concepts of her books and they sometimes deliver, but this one is called Not Quite Dead Yet, and I'm actually really excited about this one because this is her first adult thriller. All of her previous books that I've read, and I think all of her releases have been YA, and I think the biggest issue with a lot of her books that I have is that they feel so YA, so I have really high hopes of liking this one actually, just knowing that it's written for adults. This one is about Jet, who is in one of the most wealthy families, and I think she gets attacked on Halloween, which is terrifying. So she suffers this brain injury. The doctors are like, you will be dead in 7 days, but she's like determined to figure out who attacked her because no one knows what happened. And so now she's on this timeline of like, I know I'm gonna die, but I want to figure out who did this to me before I die. So she has 7 days to figure it out. And oh, I think this one sounds so interesting. I actually read 5 Survive by her this year, and I loved the pacing of it, how each part was like a different hour of the night, like it only spanned 8 hours of the night. And so I think Holly Jackson is really good at writing these very like urgent time-based stories. And I love hearing the fact that we only have 7 days in this one to conclude everything. I think everything's gonna be really fast-paced. Yeah, this one sounds so good. And I'm so excited to read her adult writing and see how different it is versus her YA writing. Okay, we're skipping to August because on August 28th, oh my gosh, R.F. Kuang is releasing Catabasis. I have been looking forward to this book for the past year. Like literally. I actually mentioned this book in my 2024 anticipated releases video because at that point she had announced the book but not the release date yet. So I thought it was going to be a 2025 release, but it's a 2026 release, so we're talking about it again, we're anticipating it again, but we at least have a real release date, and I've already pre-ordered this book. This is a dark academia fantasy romance, which is so exciting to me that R.F. Kuang is writing romance, because I feel like R.F. Kuang is so good at writing romance, but she's never written real romance in her books, but her romances, for some reason, hit me the hardest. Like, they hit me so hard, and they don't even exist in her books, if that even makes sense. Like, she doesn't write romantic relationships in her books, but the way she writes even like a small hint of 2 people maybe having feelings for each other, it already hits me so hard. So the fact that this one is a real romance, it's gonna break me. But this one, honestly, I don't want to know too much about it, but it's about 2 academic rivals at Cambridge who have to travel to hell to rescue one of their professors. And that's all I need. That's all I need. I'm so excited for this book. I can't believe I have to wait all the way until August to read it, but Catabasis, R.F. Kuang. So excited. And then this is the last one on my list. On October 7th, we have the release of The Ballad of... what is it called? The Ballad of Falling Dragons by Sarah A. Parker. This is the 2nd book of the When the Moon Hatched series. So it's a romantasy. I really liked the world of When the Moon Hatched. We had dragons, dragon moons. We had this like really amazing magical world. And we had some like reveals at the end of the 1st book that made me really excited for the sequel. And that gets me every single time. Like, leave me on a cliffhanger edge. Leave me on like a big reveal at the end of a book. I will be looking forward to the next one. Like, you have already hooked me. It is a trick, it is a gimmick, but it works on me, and I am proud to admit that. So that's the last book on my anticipated releases. That was a lot. That was 27 books that we just talked about. Go us. But on top of that, I just want to give a brief shout out to a few books that might release in 2025. I don't know, chances are like 50-50 on them, but the next ACOTAR book, where is that? Where is that? Where is our announcement? Where is the next book? I feel like everyone in the ACOTAR fandom is just like crying at this point, just going crazy, wondering when this book is gonna come out. Like, if it's gonna be 2026, just let us know. Just tell us so we like know what to look forward to. But maybe we'll get an announcement for that this year. Something else I'm really excited about is that V.E. Schwab is writing the next Vicious book called Victorious. She's confirmed it. It's probably gonna be a 2026 release, but one can dream. One can only hope that V.E. Schwab will have a double release in this next year, but I don't know. Chances are it'll be 2026, but I'm really excited for that. And also Burn of the Everflame, which is the 4th book in the Spark of the Everflame series by Penn Cole. I feel like that's probably slated to release in 2025 because all of the other books have been like ramping up and getting so much hype lately. I feel like this 4th book will come out in 2025, probably closer to the end of the year. It just hasn't been announced yet. I have not caught up with that series. I've only read the 1st book out of the 3 out so far, so I'll need to catch up with that throughout the year, but that's another book I'm looking forward to. But that being said, I'm gonna leave you guys here for now. That was a long list of books to talk about, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you did like this video, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know what your most anticipated release of 2025 is, or if you can't just pick one because I couldn't even pick 25, let me know what all of them are. Top 5, top 10, top 25, top 30, however big that list is, let me know in the comments. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!